Three of the most powerful militaries on Earth are already at war. Hundreds of fighter jets in the sky, missiles crossing continents in minutes, navies clashing across one of the most important oil routes in the world. And within just 4 days, nearly 2,000 targets inside Iran had already been hit by American and Israeli forces. This isn't a simulation. This isn't a geopolitical scenario. This is the reality of the war that began on February 28, 2026, when the United States and Israel launched Operation Epic Fury, a massive coordinated assault against Iran's military and nuclear infrastructure. Within hours, the conflict spread across the Middle East. Missile barrages, drone attacks, naval battles, cyber warfare. And by day 5, the world is asking a terrifying question. Is this the beginning of the largest war the Middle East has ever seen? Today on the Geopulse, we're breaking down the first 96 hours of this war, what actually happened, who is winning the battlefield, and why this conflict could reshape global power. How this war began. To understand this war, we have to understand something deeper. Decades of hostility between Iran, Israel, and the United States. For more than 40 years, the relationship between Washington and Tehran has been defined by confrontation. From the 1979 Iranian Revolution to nuclear sanctions, proxy wars, and cyber conflicts. Meanwhile, Israel has long viewed Iran as its greatest existential threat. Iran supports groups like Hezbollah in Lebanon, militias in Syria and Iraq, and the Houthis in Yemen, organizations that Israel and the U.S. consider hostile. But the real flashpoint has always been Iran's missile program and nuclear ambitions. According to U.S. officials, the goal of the new military campaign is simple: destroy Iran's ballistic missile capability, prevent it from obtaining nuclear weapons, and weaken the regime's ability to threaten the region. So on February 28th, the decision was made. Operation Epic Fury began, and it started with one of the largest opening strikes in modern Middle Eastern history. Day 1. The shockwave. The opening attack was massive. According to military reports, around 200 aircraft from the United States and Israel launched coordinated strikes on hundreds of targets across at least 14 Iranian cities, including Tehran, Isfahan, and Kermanshah. Stealth bombers, carrier-based fighters, cruise missiles fired from submarines. Within hours, Iranian air defense systems, missile launchers, and command centers were hit. Even more shocking, senior Iranian leadership was targeted. Reports say dozens of top Iranian officials were killed in the opening wave, including the country's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. That moment changed everything. Because in Iran's political system, the supreme leader isn't just a symbolic figure. He is the ultimate authority over the military, intelligence services, and nuclear policy. So suddenly, this wasn't just a military strike. It looked like an attempt to decapitate the Iranian regime, and Iran responded immediately. Iran strikes back. Within hours, Iran launched a wave of missiles and drones across the region. Targets included Israeli cities, U.S. military bases in the Gulf, strategic infrastructure across the Middle East. Iranian missiles and drones struck or targeted facilities in Bahrain, Kuwait, the UAE, and Israel, escalating the conflict far beyond a single battlefield. One Iranian drone strike on a U.S. port facility in Kuwait reportedly killed American service members, marking one of the first U.S. combat casualties of the war. But Iran wasn't only targeting military bases. It also launched a broader strategic move: economic warfare. Iran's Revolutionary Guard warned shipping vessels not to enter the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most important oil choke points. This narrow passage handles about 20% of global oil trade. And almost overnight, tanker traffic collapsed. Oil prices jumped. Global markets panicked, because suddenly this war wasn't just about missiles. It was about energy, trade, and the global economy. Let me ask you something here. If the Strait of Hormuz stays closed for weeks, how much do you think oil prices could rise? $100 a barrel? $150? Tell me what you think in the comments. Day 2 to 3. Total war. Across the region. By the second and third days, the war had already expanded beyond Iran and Israel. Iran's allies began entering the battlefield. In Lebanon, Hezbollah launched drones and rocket attacks into Israel, triggering Israeli airstrikes deep inside Beirut. Meanwhile, U.S. forces intensified their campaign. Within the first 100 hours, American and Israeli forces had struck nearly 2,000 Iranian targets. The scale of the operation is enormous. Over 50,000 U.S. troops deployed, more than 200 fighter jets, 2 aircraft carriers in the region, strategic bombers including B-2, B-1, and B-52 aircraft. For comparison, that level of military concentration is the largest U.S. buildup in the Middle East in a generation. But Iran still has one advantage: missiles, lots of them. Iran possesses one of the largest ballistic missile arsenals in the Middle East, with thousands of short and medium-range systems capable of hitting U.S. bases and Israeli cities. And some of them are far more dangerous than older missiles. Because now we're talking about hypersonic weapons. Part 5. The hypersonic missile moment. During the early days of the war, Iran claimed it had used hypersonic missiles in attacks toward Israeli targets. Hypersonic weapons travel faster than Mach 5, more than 6,000 kilometers per hour. But speed isn't the only issue. These missiles can maneuver in flight, making them extremely difficult for traditional missile defenses like Iron Dome or Arrow systems to intercept. Even advanced Western militaries are still struggling to defend against them. So when Iran fired these missiles toward Israeli territory, it sent a message, a technological message. It was Iran saying, "We still have powerful tools left." And that raises a big question. Do you think hypersonic weapons will change the future of warfare the way nuclear weapons once did? I'd love to hear your perspective in the comments. Day 4. Air battles and naval warfare. By day 4, the war reached another milestone. For the first time in history, an Israeli F-35 stealth fighter shot down a manned Iranian aircraft during combat operations over Tehran. That moment demonstrated something crucial. Despite Iran's missile strength, Israel still dominates the airspace. At sea, the conflict was just as intense. U.S. naval forces reportedly sank multiple Iranian naval vessels, including warships involved in regional operations. And the fighting is no longer limited to Iran's borders. Attacks have reached the Persian Gulf, Lebanon, parts of the eastern Mediterranean, strategic shipping routes. In other words, this war is slowly becoming a regional conflict, and that leads to the next question. Could other countries be pulled into this war? Think about it. Saudi Arabia, Turkey, NATO allies, Russia, China. The geopolitical stakes are enormous. Day 5. The situation now. As we reach day 5, the battlefield picture is still evolving. Israel continues to strike Iranian Revolutionary Guard positions and Hezbollah targets in Lebanon, while Iran promises complete destruction of enemy infrastructure in response. Meanwhile, inside Iran, political uncertainty is growing. With the death of the supreme leader, the country is facing a major succession crisis. One of the potential successors is Mujtaba Khamenei, the late leader's son, a figure seen as closely aligned with Iran's powerful Revolutionary Guard. That means the war could become even more hardline and unpredictable. But here's the biggest uncertainty. No one knows how long this war will last. It could be weeks, months, or escalate into something much bigger. Part 8. Why this could be America's hardest war yet. If this war continues, it could become one of the most difficult conflicts the United States has fought in decades. Why? 3 reasons. First, geography. Iran is huge, nearly 4 times the size of Iraq. Second, missile warfare. Iran can strike U.S. bases across the Middle East without leaving its territory. And third, regional alliances. Groups like Hezbollah, militias in Iraq, and others could open multiple fronts. This means the war could quickly turn into a multi-front regional conflict, and that is something no superpower wants. Final thoughts. The big picture. The first 96 hours of this war have already changed the Middle East. Thousands of strikes, major leaders killed, global oil routes threatened. And one of the most dangerous military confrontations of the 21st century is now unfolding in real time. But the biggest question isn't about the past 4 days. It's about the next 4 weeks. Because wars rarely end the way they begin. They evolve, they expand, and sometimes they spiral beyond anyone's control. So let me leave you with one final question. Do you think this war will remain limited, or could it grow into a much larger global conflict? Share your thoughts below. And if you want clear, fact-driven analysis of the world's most important events, consider subscribing to the Geopulse, because understanding the world has never mattered more.